Hey guys, I wanted to follow up with you here in week 6. I talked to you last week about Pierce's disease, and I mentioned how we had done some data from the Negro Amaro vineyard at the campus. I had told you that 0.25 was set as a baseline in the data for the data analysis. Anything higher than 0.25 was infected, anything lower was uninfected, and I got quite a few questions about that. And the way that was determined was a negative and a positive control were done. The positive control was provided from the company that we bought the chemicals for processing this. They provided a positively infected sample. We did the test on it, and the test resulted in a reading higher than 1.0 on a scale, like seriously infected. Well, there was also a negative control done on a vine that was grown in a vector-free greenhouse under complete screen without any outside influence, no potential for it to be disease infected. It was disease certified, disease-free, utilized a hot dip, etc. Everything that was done to ensure that this plant was not infected. And so the result from the uninfected vine, which was about 0.13 off the top of my head, I think it was 0.13 or 0.14. And so that level, a lot of students ask, like, anything higher than 0 sounds like it would be infected, and I don't understand. Well, combining the highest level of infection from an infected vine, comparing that to the negative control, we come up with the 0.25 as the threshold. And this is how it's commonly done in the industry, and I had quite a bit of guidance while doing this. I got to complete these tests down at the USDA research lab, and they do these tests quite frequently. And so as you look, we have a lot of vines that are uninfected. They're in that 0.14 range, 0.15 range. Going forward, we can say those vines are uninfected. The bad news is we have some vines in there that are infected. I think there was 3 or 4 off the top of my head. And knowing that it is in the vineyard, and we just measured 3 rows and every odd numbered vine in those 3 rows. So you could extrapolate that out and say there potentially could be 40 or 50 infected vines out there. That being the case, you want to begin the process of, number 1, determining what our vector is, which we're looking at, and then treating the vines and making sure we're not continuing to spread. Those vines that test positive need to quickly then come out of the vineyard as well. And so I just wanted to follow up with that so there was a little bit more understanding there instead of you just looking at the data. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was Winkler's scale of heat summation. This is about growing degree days. And so we took a quiz already where a question was asked about growing degree days. And I understand I haven't spoken to you guys a lot about this. And then in week 5, you had a question where we compared Mr. Newsom's vineyard in West Texas to the climate of the Verde Valley. I actually pulled some data for Camp Verde, and then you were asked to compare, because the climates were very similar, and that's the reason we looked at this West Texas model. But we wanted to compare the two and then come up with the growing degree days. That was the question that I asked you, and without any explanation or discussion about that, some people went directly to the internet, they figured it out themselves, and other people were wondering what to do. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all go back to that quiz where I asked you growing degree day question, and I'm going to add an additional 2 points to everybody's score. You'll see that here shortly. The other thing I want to do is just tell you how easy this growing degree day thing is. And so it's September. It's starting to cool down just a bit, but it's still warm. Today, for instance, it was 90 degrees for the high, and this morning it was a bit cool, 50 degrees for the low. So in Winkler's scale, the year runs from April 1st to October 31st. And then any temperature higher, the average temperature higher than 50 degrees, is added as a growing degree day. And so in this example of today, 90 degrees high, 50 degrees low. That's quite a diurnal spread. However, if you add 90 degrees and 50 degrees together, you get 140 degrees. 140 degrees divided by 2 gives you 70 degrees. The average temperature for today was 70 degrees. 50 degrees and higher is the threshold that Winkler determined for vine growth. And so if you take the 70-degree average for today minus the 50 degrees, you're left with 20-degree growing day for this one single day. You could extrapolate that out a bit and just assume, let's say that's the average for the whole month of September. You can do this day by day. That's the way it is done. Day by day, adding the temperatures, and then they accumulate. When I gave you that information for the month, what I wanted you to do is make assumptions based on how many days there are in the month, accumulated degree days, and then move forward with those temperatures. So as you're looking at site selection and you're looking at different places, you can take monthly average. If you don't have the daily temperatures, you could take like a monthly average and you can do it. It won't be perfect, but roughly it would be pretty good. So today we came up with 20 degrees. There's 30 days in September. So for the whole month, we've accumulated 600 growing degree days. And so that is added, and that will end October 31st. And so if you think from April 1st to October 31st, just in September, we're accumulating quite a bit of growing degree days. And that's one of the reasons why the Verde Valley is quite high on Winkler's scale, and we quickly would accumulate 4,000 growing degree days and then surpass that. And so that helps you make a decision based on your growing degree days. All right, thank you, and I hope that helps a little bit.